A new shadow has fallen over America. It is a crisis that is eating our communities alive. This is not just a story about drugs, it's really a story about people. It's about our sons, our daughters, our neighbors, and our friends. For years we've talked about the opioid epidemic. We thought we understood the enemy, but, the enemy has changed. It's become stronger and, honestly, more dangerous. The drugs on the street today are not what they were 10 years ago. They're a deadly mix of powerful chemicals that are destroying bodies and minds. This is a quiet war happening in our cities and small towns. We're seeing a new kind of suffering. It's visible on the faces of people who are lost in addiction. It's in the deep black wounds that just will not heal. These wounds are a sign of a new drug called Tranq. This drug is a mix of fentanyl, a powerful opioid, and xylazine, a tranquilizer for animals. This combination is creating a health crisis like we've never seen before. It's pushing our hospitals, our first responders, and our families to their limits. The problem is bigger than any one person. It's a reflection of a society that's struggling to care for its most vulnerable people. This essay will tell the story of this new crisis. We'll look at the drugs themselves and what they do to the human body. We'll walk through neighborhoods that have been hit the hardest, like Kensington and Philadelphia. We'll hear the stories of people who are fighting for their lives every single day. We'll also look at the bigger picture. We'll see how this crisis is a sign of a broken system, a system that has failed to provide the support and care that people need to heal. This is not a simple problem with an easy answer. It's a complex tragedy that demands our attention. The numbers tell a part of the story. For a time it seemed the worst was over. Overdose deaths started to go down in some places, but this good news hides a darker truth. While fewer people may be dying, many more are getting sicker. The survivors of this epidemic are living with terrible health problems. They have infections, permanent injuries, and deep emotional pain. They're the human cost of this crisis. Their struggle shows us that we are not at the end of this story. We're just at the beginning of a new, more difficult chapter. We must understand what is happening if we want to find a way forward. Fentanyl is the deadliest drug in American history. It's a synthetic opioid. That means it's made in a lab. Doctors sometimes use it to treat very severe pain, like after surgery or for cancer patients. But the fentanyl on the street is different. It's made illegally in secret labs. It's incredibly powerful, 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than morphine. A very small amount, just 2 milligrams, can be enough to kill a person. That's about the size of a few grains of salt. This is why so many people are dying from accidental overdoses. Opioids work by attaching to special parts of the brain called opioid receptors. These receptors control pain and emotions. When a person takes an opioid, the drug blocks pain signals. It also releases a chemical called dopamine, which makes the person feel very happy and relaxed. This feeling is often called a high. The brain quickly gets used to this feeling. It starts to need the drug just to feel normal. This is how addiction begins. The body and brain become dependent on the drug. Without it, the person feels very sick. This sickness is called withdrawal. Fentanyl is so dangerous because it's very strong and acts very fast. When someone uses fentanyl, it rushes to the brain. It can slow down or even stop a person's breathing. The person can become unconscious in just a few minutes. If they don't get help right away, their brain will not get enough oxygen. This can cause brain damage or death. Because fentanyl is so potent, the line between a dose that gets you high and a dose that kills you is very thin. It's like walking on a razor's edge. A tiny mistake can be fatal. This drug has changed the illegal drug market completely. It's cheap to make and easy to transport. Drug traffickers can make a lot of money from it. They often mix it into other drugs like heroin, cocaine, or fake pills. They do this to make their products stronger and more addictive, but this also makes the drugs much more deadly. Many people who die from a fentanyl overdose didn't even know they were taking it. They thought they were using a different drug. Fentanyl is a silent killer hiding in plain sight. It is the reason why so many families are losing their loved ones. Fentanyl is the deadliest drug in American history. It's a synthetic opioid. That means it's made in a lab. Doctors sometimes use it to treat very severe pain, like after surgery or for cancer patients. But the fentanyl on the street is different. It's made illegally in secret labs. It's incredibly powerful, 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than morphine. A very small amount, just 2 milligrams, can be enough to kill a person. That's about the size of a few grains of salt. This is why so many people are dying from accidental overdoses. Opioids work by attaching to special parts of the brain called opioid receptors. These receptors control pain and emotions. When a person takes an opioid, the drug blocks pain signals. It also releases a chemical called dopamine, which makes the person feel very happy and relaxed. This feeling is often called a high. The brain quickly gets used to this feeling. It starts to need the drug just to feel normal. This is how addiction begins. The body and brain become dependent on the drug. Without it, the person feels very sick. This sickness is called withdrawal. Fentanyl is so dangerous because it's very strong and acts very fast. When someone uses fentanyl, it rushes to the brain. It can slow down or even stop a person's breathing. The person can become unconscious in just a few minutes. If they don't get help right away, their brain will not get enough oxygen. This can cause brain damage or death. Because fentanyl is so potent, the line between a dose that gets you high and a dose that kills you is very thin. It's like walking on a razor's edge. A tiny mistake can be fatal. This drug has changed the illegal drug market completely. It's cheap to make and easy to transport. Drug traffickers can make a lot of money from it. They often mix it into other drugs like heroin, cocaine, or fake pills. They do this to make their products stronger and more addictive, but this also makes the drugs much more deadly. Many people who die from a fentanyl overdose didn't even know they were taking it. They thought they were using a different drug. Fentanyl is a silent killer hiding in plain sight. It is the reason why so many families are losing their loved. Just when we thought the drug crisis could not get worse, it did. A new substance started appearing in the drug supply. This substance is called xylazine. Xylazine is not an opioid, it's a powerful tranquilizer. Vets use it on large animals like horses and cattle to sedate them for medical procedures. It's not approved for use in humans. But drug traffickers saw an opportunity. They started mixing xylazine with fentanyl. This new combination has a street name, Tranq or Tranq dope. It has created a new level of horror on America's streets. The reason for mixing fentanyl and xylazine is simple. Fentanyl creates a very strong but short high. Users feel the need to use again very quickly. Xylazine extends the effects of the fentanyl. It makes the high last longer. For people trapped in the cycle of addiction, this seems like a good thing. It means they don't have to find more drugs as often. But this combination comes at a terrible price. Xylazine is a sedative. It slows down the central nervous system. It makes a person feel very sleepy and disconnected from their body. This deep sedation is what makes it so dangerous. When a person uses Tranq, they can fall into a deep stupor for hours. They might be standing on a street corner, but they are completely unaware of their surroundings. They look like zombies, frozen in place. This makes them very vulnerable. They can be robbed, assaulted, or hit by cars. Because xylazine is not an opioid, the life-saving drug naloxone, also known as Narcan, does not work on it. Naloxone can reverse an opioid overdose by blocking the effects of fentanyl, but it cannot reverse the effects of xylazine. This makes overdoses much harder to treat and much more likely to be fatal. This new drug mixture has spread quickly. In Philadelphia, it's now almost impossible to find fentanyl that does not contain xylazine. Over 90% of the street drug samples tested in the city now have it. The problem is no longer just in Philadelphia. Tranq is being found in cities all across the country. It's a national problem that is growing every day. First responders and healthcare workers are facing a new challenge. They're trying to save people from a drug that they do not fully understand. The arrival of Tranq has changed the game, and the stakes have never been higher. The most terrifying effect of Tranq is, honestly, what it does to the human body. Xylazine causes these severe, deep wounds that, actually rot the flesh. These are not the normal marks you see from injecting drugs. These wounds are different. They are large, open sores that can appear anywhere on the body, not just at the injection site. They start as blisters or hard patches of skin. Then the tissue begins to die. The skin turns black and yellow. The wounds develop this thick, dead crust called eschar. Underneath this crust, the flesh is decaying. These wounds are, well, incredibly painful and really difficult to treat. They can become severely infected. Bacteria can get into the sores and spread throughout the body. This can lead to a dangerous condition called sepsis. The dead tissue must be removed for the wound to have any chance of healing. This process, called debridement, is very painful. Doctors have to cut away the black, rotting flesh. In many cases, the damage is just too severe. The infection can spread to the bone. To save a person's life, doctors may have to amputate a limb. People are losing their arms, legs, fingers, and toes because of this drug. The reason xylazine causes these wounds is not fully understood. One theory is that it restricts blood flow. Xylazine is a vasoconstrictor, which means it makes blood vessels narrow. When the blood vessels get too narrow, blood cannot reach the skin and underlying tissues. Without blood, the tissue does not get oxygen and nutrients, it starts to die. This is what creates the necrotic, or dead tissue. Because people who use Tranq are often sedated for hours, they may not move. The constant pressure on certain parts of their body can also reduce blood flow and make the wounds worse. For people living on the streets, caring for these wounds is almost impossible. They do not have access to clean bandages, antiseptic creams, or regular medical care. The wounds get worse and worse. The pain is constant. Many people are ashamed of their wounds and try to hide them. They are afraid to go to the hospital because they fear being judged or mistreated. This creates a vicious cycle. The drug that gives them a moment of relief is also slowly eating them alive. These wounds are a physical manifestation of the horror of this new drug epidemic. They are a sign that we are failing to protect the most vulnerable among us. To understand the human cost of this crisis, you really have to go to a place like Kensington Avenue in Philadelphia. This neighborhood has long been the center of the city's drug trade, but Tranq has turned it into a scene from a nightmare. When you walk down the streets of Kensington, you see the reality of this epidemic up close. You see people who are lost in a Tranq stupor. They are standing on sidewalks, bent over at the waist, frozen in place. They look like statues of suffering. They are alive, but they are not really there. Their minds are gone, taken by the drug. The streets are filled with people who are sick and hurting. You see the terrible wounds caused by xylazine. People have open sores on their arms, legs, and even their faces. Some try to cover them with dirty bandages. Others do not have the energy to care anymore. The smell of infection hangs in the air. You see people trying to inject drugs in public, their hands shaking. They are desperate to stop the pain of withdrawal. They are trapped in a cycle of using just to feel normal for a little while. Every person you see has a story. They were once someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. There are people trying to help. Outreach workers walk the streets every day. They hand out clean needles, wound care kits, and food. They carry naloxone to reverse overdoses. They talk to people, offering them a connection to a world that has forgotten them. They try to convince people to go to the hospital or to a shelter. But the need is overwhelming. There are not enough resources to help everyone. The shelters are full. The treatment centers have long waiting lists. For every person they help, there are 10 more who are still suffering. The scene in Kensington is a powerful reminder that this is not just about bad choices. It is about desperation. It is about people who have been failed by every system that was supposed to protect them. They are dealing with poverty, trauma, and mental illness. The drug is a symptom of a much deeper problem. It is a way to escape a reality that is just too painful to bear. A walk through Kensington is a walk through a public health disaster. It shows you what happens when a society turns its back on its own people. It is a heartbreaking picture of what Tranq is doing to America. One of the most frightening parts of the fentanyl crisis is its unpredictability. People who use street drugs today are taking a huge risk with every dose. They often have no idea what they are really buying. A person might think they are buying heroin, but the bag could contain pure fentanyl. Another person might buy what they think are prescription pills like OxyContin or Xanax. But these pills are often fake. They are made in illegal labs and pressed to look like the real thing. Inside, they contain a deadly amount of fentanyl. People are dying because they trust their dealer. But the dealer often does not know what is in the drugs either. This danger is even greater in a place like Philadelphia. Researchers have tested the drugs sold on the streets there. They found that the amount of fentanyl in bags that look exactly the same can be very different. One bag might have a small, manageable amount. The next bag, which looks identical, could have 50 times more fentanyl. This is like playing Russian roulette. The user has no way to know if their next dose will be their last. This extreme variation in potency is a major reason for the high number of overdose deaths. It is impossible for a user to dose safely when the product is always changing. The problem of hidden drugs goes beyond fentanyl. Now with Tranq, users are being exposed to xylazine without their knowledge or consent. Most people who started using Tranq did not seek it out. It was simply mixed into the heroin or fentanyl they were already using. They only realized they were taking something new when they started experiencing strange effects. They felt a different kind of sedation. They noticed the high lasted longer, and then the terrible wounds started to appear. They became addicted to a substance they never intended to take. This hidden danger makes it very hard for people to protect themselves. Even those who try to be careful are at risk. They might use a smaller amount of a new batch to test its strength. But with the potency changing so much from bag to bag, this is not a reliable safety measure. They are caught in a deadly trap. The addiction forces them to seek out the drug, but the drug itself is a mystery box of dangerous chemicals. This is not a fair fight. It is a public health crisis fueled by a toxic, unregulated drug supply that is killing people by the thousands. It is easy to look at this crisis and see only addiction. It is easy to blame the people who use drugs for their situation. But this view is too simple. It ignores the deeper reality. The Tranq epidemic is not just a drug problem. It is a sign of a broken society. It is a symptom of a healthcare system that is failing. It is a reflection of a social support network that has fallen apart. The people suffering on our streets are not just addicts. They are human beings who have been left behind. They are struggling with issues that go far beyond their drug use. Many people who turn to drugs are trying to escape from unbearable pain. This pain can be physical, from chronic illness or injury, but often, it is emotional. Many have experienced severe trauma in their lives. They may have grown up in abusive homes. They may have experienced violence or poverty. They may be suffering from serious mental health conditions like depression, anxiety, or PTSD. For them, drugs become a form of self-medication. It is a way to numb the pain and survive another day. Without proper mental health care, they are left to treat their own wounds with the only thing they can find. Our healthcare system is not built to handle this kind of complex problem. It is often difficult and expensive to get mental health treatment. There are not enough doctors, therapists, or treatment centers. When people do try to get help for their addiction, they face many barriers. They may not have health insurance. They may have to wait months for an open spot in a treatment program. When they go to a hospital for a wound or an overdose, they are often treated poorly. They are seen as a problem, not as a patient who needs care. This stigma pushes them away from the very systems that should be helping them. This crisis also shows the failure of our social safety net. A stable life is built on a foundation of housing, employment, and community. But for many people, this foundation has crumbled. They cannot find affordable housing. They cannot find a job that pays a living wage. They feel disconnected from their families and communities. When a person has no home, no job, and no one to turn to, it is easy to fall into despair. Drugs can become a way to cope with the hopelessness of their situation. To truly solve this crisis, we must do more than just focus on the drugs. We must rebuild the systems that are supposed to give every person a chance at a healthy and stable life. The drug supply is constantly changing. As soon as authorities and health officials begin to understand one threat, a new one appears. This is a never-ending chemical game, and the drug traffickers are always one step ahead. The rise of xylazine was a perfect example. It was a new way to make fentanyl more appealing and more addictive. Now, even as we struggle to deal with Tranq, new and even more dangerous chemicals are entering the market. This constant evolution makes the crisis incredibly difficult to fight. It is like trying to hit a moving target in the dark. Recently, another animal tranquilizer called medetomidine has been found in street drugs. Like xylazine, it is not an opioid, and it causes heavy sedation. It also causes severe withdrawal symptoms, making it even harder for people to stop using. But perhaps the most alarming new discovery is an industrial chemical called BTMPS. This chemical is used to make plastics. It was never meant to be consumed by any living thing. Yet, since the summer of 2024, it has been showing up in drug samples in Philadelphia. The amount of BTMPs in the drug supply is growing rapidly. The health effects of BTMPs are terrifying. Studies on animals show that it can cause serious damage to the body. It can cause heart defects, eye damage, and even death. The levels of BTMPS being found in street drugs are much higher than the levels that caused harm in animal studies. We are now in the middle of a massive, uncontrolled experiment on human beings. People are consuming a toxic industrial chemical without any knowledge of what it is or what it will do to them. We do not know what the long-term effects will be for the people who survive. This constant introduction of new chemicals makes treatment much more complicated. Doctors and nurses are trying to treat patients for exposure to substances they have never seen before. They do not know how these chemicals interact with each other or with the human body. They do not have established protocols for how to manage withdrawal from these new mixtures. Every day they face new challenges. This chemical game is not just dangerous for the people using drugs. It is a threat to our entire public health system. It shows a complete disregard for human life from the traffickers who are poisoning our communities for profit. While national overdose numbers have started to fall, this does not mean the crisis is over. It just means the nature of the crisis is changing. We are moving from a crisis of death to a crisis of sickness and survival. The people who are not dying from overdoses are often left profoundly unwell. They are living with the devastating consequences of using drugs like Tranq. They have chronic wounds that may never fully heal. They have lost limbs. They suffer from serious infections like MRSA and infections of the heart valves. The road to healing for these survivors is long and filled with challenges. Treating addiction in the age of Tranq is harder than ever before. The combination of fentanyl and xylazine creates a withdrawal that is incredibly severe. People experience the agony of opioid withdrawal, like muscle aches, vomiting, and anxiety. At the same time, they experience the effects of xylazine withdrawal, which can include high blood pressure and an uncontrollable feeling of dread. This double withdrawal is so intense that many people cannot endure it. They leave treatment early, driven back to the streets to use again. Hospitals are developing new protocols to manage this, but it is a difficult and slow process. The human cost of this epidemic is immense. It is measured in the lives lost, but also in the lives shattered. It is in the survivors who must learn to live without a leg or an arm. It is in the children who are growing up without their parents. It is in the families who have spent all their money and energy trying to save a loved one. It is in the healthcare workers and first responders who are burning out from the constant trauma they witness. This crisis leaves deep scars on everyone it touches. The need for support, compassion, and resources has never been greater. We cannot turn away from this reality. We must face it with courage and compassion. We need to build a better system of care. This means more funding for addiction treatment and mental health care. It means providing safe housing and support for people in recovery. It means treating every person with dignity and respect regardless of their struggles. The road to healing will be long, not just for individuals, but for our entire country. It requires us to see this crisis not as a moral failing, but as a collective responsibility. The lives of thousands of our fellow Americans depend on it.